Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I'm going to be doing my top 24 books of 2024. I'm very excited to do this video. I feel like I did this last year for 2023, or I think I just did like a top books of the year. I don't know if it was 23, but this year we're doing 24 for 2024. And honestly, I thought this was going to be a lot harder than it was. It was quite easy to find 24 books that I loved, and then I put them in order. It's kind of a rough order. I feel like it depends on the day that you ask me, like some of these books which I like more than others, so take the order with a grain of salt. But these are my 24 top books of the year, so I'm just going to go through them starting with number 24 and working my way up to number 1. I'm very excited. I love watching these videos. These are my favorite videos to watch. I feel like you get a good taste for like people's book taste, and then you can also obviously hopefully get some recommendations for books that you want to read. So like I said, we're just gonna jump right in, and first book that we have is Daydream by Hannah Grace. So this is book number 24, and I gave this book 4 stars. I really enjoyed this one. This is part of the Maple Hill series. You have Icebreaker, then Wildfire, then this one. I think this one would be my second favorite. I still just have such a soft spot in my heart for Icebreaker. I don't know why. I just like remember absolutely loving that book, but I really enjoyed this one. This is about Henry and Hallie, and basically they become friends, and Hallie agrees to tutor him, and then Henry is going to kind of give her some life experiences. She's writing a romance book, but she's never really experienced a lot of romance in her life, so he's gonna kind of help her in that way. So I thought it was really cute. I loved that there was really no like miscommunication trope. I feel like they understood each other so well. Hallie is super like people pleaser, oldest daughter, and then Henry is someone that has a lot of social anxiety and he gets very overwhelmed, and I feel like they just knew each other so well and they knew exactly what each other needed, and I just thought it was a really sweet story, and I really just loved these characters a lot. Next up, book number 23 is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I really did enjoy this book. I was hoping that I was going to like it more, but I still really loved it, and obviously it made my top 24 books of the year, so it was definitely a good book. This is about Miles and Daphne, and their exes get together, and so now the two of them are kind of like trying to figure out what to do with their life. They end up living together for short term. Daphne wants to leave this small town. She's like ready to leave. She's like, I need to get out of this place, like I'm seeing my ex and all this stuff, and then Miles is like trying to convince her why this small town in Michigan is so amazing and like why she should stay. And I don't know, I just thought it was a very sweet story. I feel like of all of Emily Henry's books, I think I related to this one the least, but I still really enjoyed it. I loved the story. Emily Henry's writing just keeps getting better and better, and I truly thought this book was so fun. Like Miles, it was such a sweet character, and I love all the little gestures that he did for Daphne. I feel like he really showed that it's not always like the big things, it's not always the big gestures, and sometimes it's just showing people you care with the little things, so I thought that was very sweet. For book number 22, I have The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. I gave this one 4 stars as well. I loved this book so much. I was like giggling and kicking my feet. I think I filmed a reading vlog of this, and I remember laying there like just giggling. Like I was so giddy reading this book. This is about Emma, and she's trying to write a movie script, and her agent ends up sending her to work with this big time movie producer, Charlie Yates, but he like doesn't really want her there. He's like, I don't need your help, like I'm fine. And the two of them kind of strike up a little bit of a friendship first, which I really liked. There was some miscommunication that kind of frustrated me, but I do remember when I read this just like having a good time reading it. I read this in the summer. I feel like it was a very good summer read, and yeah, I just remember all around really enjoying this book. There was also some stuff going on in her personal life that they touch on that I thought was really sweet as well. Book number 21 is A Man Called Ove by Fredrik Backman. I gave this one 4 stars. I sobbed at the end of this one, so just be warned that it is a bit of an emotional read, but I loved it so much. There's something about books that can make me feel so emotional like that I just am obsessed with for some reason. But this is about Ove, and he's kind of this grumpy old man. His wife has passed, he lives alone, and these new young neighbors move in with kids, and he's like so just does not want anything to do with them, but they kind of weasel their way into his life, and it's so sweet. You also learn about like his past and kind of why he is the way he is. You learn about him and his wife's relationship, and oh my god, this book, especially at the end, just absolutely broke my heart, but it was so good. It really has made me want to read more of Fredrik Backman's writing because I've heard such good things about his other books, and just from reading this one book, I'm like already hooked. next up, this is like kind of cheating a little bit, but for book 20, I have a series, and it is the Artifacts of Arana series by Nisha J. Tooley. I couldn't pick just one, so I just included all three of them, but I lumped them together. I just absolutely fell in love with this series. After reading ACOTAR at the beginning of the year, I was like, I need something else like that. Like, I was like craving more fantasy like that and fantasy series that I could really immerse myself into. My friend recommended this one to me, and I just like fell in love with it. The world is so interesting. It's not too complicated though. I feel like the politics are very well explained. There's so many twists and turns. The end of every book has left me like wanting more, and I still have yet to read the fourth book. It just recently came out, so I really need to read that, but I have loved the first three books so much. I think I gave them all 4 stars. Honestly, I feel like I should have given them higher rating, but I just loved this series so much. If you're into fantasy or romantasy, highly recommend it. The worlds and everything are so interesting, and I like ate all of these books up. Like, I was devouring them, reading them so quickly because I was just so like immersed in them, and I was like, oh my god, I need to know what's happening next. So highly recommend that entire series if you have not read it yet. Book number 19 is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. I adore Sally Rooney. I love her writing. I think it is so unique, and I really just fell in love with this book when I read it earlier this year. It was so good. You have 2 brothers, Peter and Ivan. Peter is a lawyer. He's in his 30s. He lives in Dublin. He's very successful. And then you have Ivan, who is, I want to say like 21 or 22. He's a chess player, and he's kind of like lost in life, doesn't really know what he wants to do with his life, and they lose their father. So you basically have 2 storylines kind of following each brother and how they are dealing with their father's death, as well as kind of their relationship with each other as siblings. I feel like if you have a sibling, you really could relate to probably one of these characters. As the younger sibling, who is especially a lot younger than my siblings like Ivan is, I really related to Ivan's character a lot. You also have a little bit of a romance for each of them, and yeah, I just really loved this. Also, it was such unique writing because you have like their 2 different perspectives, and every time you switch back and forth, the writing style is different for each brother, which I thought was really unique. I feel like I haven't seen that a lot in like a dual point of view book, and so it was very interesting to see that played out, and I just really loved this book. There were such amazing quotes in this book. I talked about it in my end of year book tag. I read off some of the quotes, but I really feel like, I mean, Sally Rooney just is incredible, and her quotes are so good, and she really just like went above and beyond with this book. I loved it so much. I think I gave this one 4 stars. Book number 18 is This Summer Will Be Different by Carly Fortune. I gave this one 4.25 stars. I remember reading this on the beach when I was going to visit my dad, and I feel like it was the perfect setting for this book. This is about Lucy, and she basically goes to visit her college, I think they're college friends, and her friend ends up getting there late, and when she's there, she ends up having a one-night stand with the bartender. Comes to find out the next day that that bartender is her best friend's brother. They never tell her best friend. They're like, we're just gonna keep this under wraps. And then you kind of follow them over the next 5 years of every time they see each other again, like they have these feelings for each other, but they kind of try and hide it. And I feel like it wasn't super romance heavy. I feel like there was a lot of more like women's fiction about Lucy's personal life and then her relationship with her best friend. But the bits of romance that you did get, and when they would happen, hit so hard. I don't know what it was about this book. I just really loved it. I loved Felix's character. I loved the setting, like I said. I feel like this was just like the perfect summer read. If you need a read for this upcoming summer on the beach, highly would recommend this one. Number 17 is Addicted After All by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the third Addicted book, maybe? Or no, it's the 5th Addicted book because it's the last one of Lily and Lo's story. If you don't know, I read the entire Addicted series for the first time this year, and I really loved the series as a whole. I feel like the whole series is a 5-star, but there were definitely some books and some storylines that I enjoyed more than others. So I have 3 of them here. They're actually all in a row here in my top 24. So 17 is Addicted After All. This is the wrap up of Lily and Lo's story. I feel like they were a couple that started with so much turmoil, so much drama, so much personal growth that had to happen, and by the time you get to this last book, you really see just that growth between them, and I loved it so much. Honestly, reading this entire series feels like watching a reality TV show, which is funny because in the book they have a reality TV show, but that is genuinely what it feels like. It is just a bunch of rich people in like Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, New York area, and they just are rich, but they have all these problems and their lives are in the limelight. Their parents are CEOs. Like, it is so much drama, but it is so good and truly, as the title says, addictive. So loved that one. Then book number 16 is Long Way Down. I rated this one 4.5 stars as well. Daisy and Reich are by far my favorite couple, and this is kind of their wrap-up book. I don't know what it was about them, but I feel like I just felt the most connection between them. I wanted them to succeed. I loved Reich's character so much. I feel like I related to Daisy a lot. She has a lot of like anxiety and stuff because of her older sisters being in the limelight, and she was so much younger than them that she kind of got like bullied in school and like had a lot of trauma with that. And I feel like her character and just like her anxiety and everything, I feel like I related to, and I just really loved their relationship the most. And so this was kind of their wrap up of their love story, and I just really enjoyed how things ended for them. And for book number 15, I have Some Kind of Perfect. So this is the final book in the entire series, and this follows all 6 of the core 6 and then where their life goes over the next, I want to say it follows them over like a decade. But like I said, reading this series, like I truly did not want this book to end. I didn't want this series to end, these characters to end. I was like, I need more of them. Like, I don't want them to go. And I just really loved seeing all of the characters, and it was so sweet, like seeing them start families and businesses and succeed and grow in life. And like, I think this book was like 600 pages, and I genuinely wanted it to be longer. Like, I was like, I don't want to let these characters go. So really loved this book and just this series as a whole. Book number 14 is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I have genuinely loved every single book of hers I have read, and this one is no exception. I really thoroughly enjoyed this book so much. I gave this one 4.5 stars. I remember reading this book when I was kind of like slumped out, and even still, I loved this book, and I feel like it brought me out of a slump, which is a good sign. This is about Emma and Justin posts on a Reddit thread where he believes that he has this curse where he's like, everyone that I date finds their soulmate immediately after we break up. Well, Emma sees it and she's like, oh my God, the same thing happens to me. And so they kind of joke where they're like, well, if we date each other, then maybe the curse will cancel each other out. So they meet up. Emma's a travel nurse, and they meet up and they start going on these dates, and they're like, we're only gonna go on like 4 dates or something, and then we're gonna call it off. And of course, feelings start to develop. But the one thing I love so much about Abby Jimenez's books is that she includes so much more than just the romance. I mean, both of them have some really deep things going on in their personal life, things that they're really struggling with, especially within their families. And I feel like she does such a good job of handling those topics and including them while also still having a fun summery romance. Like, I feel like you could totally read this very fun summery romance, but at the same time, it is very deep and emotional. And I just really love that about her books. Book number 13 is Play Along by Liz Tomford. This is the 4th book in the Windy City series. I love this entire series, but I really, really loved this one so much. Isaiah is so like golden retriever, so down bad for Kennedy, and I just loved reading their story. Basically, Kennedy works for the baseball team that he is on, and one night they drunkenly get married in Vegas, and she's afraid that she's now going to get like kicked off of the working for the team, and so instead they just confess that they actually are in love and pretend like this is a real marriage and like it wasn't an accidental marriage. That way she can stay on the team. And it's so funny, like there were so many parts where I was genuinely laughing out loud because Isaiah has always had a crush on Kennedy and has always been trying to get her to date him. And so the way that he is just like playing it up so much and she gets so annoyed with him, it's so funny. But their relationship is very sweet. Like I said, Isaiah is just like the perfect golden retriever man, and I just loved this book so much. I think I read it in like literally a day and a half because I was just so invested and I just could not stop reading it. Book number 12 is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Also gave this one 4.5 stars. There's a lot here in the middle that are like a 4.5 star. We'll work our way to the 5 stars towards the end. I kind of ranked these based on like how I rated them, sort of, but then also not. I don't know. This one is about Eva and Shane, and they met as kids in like high school, I want to say, and they spent about a week together and then they never saw each other again, but they have been writing about each other in their books for years. They're both authors, and that immediately drew me to this book. I was like, I need to know everything. They've been writing about each other in their books. Like, that's crazy. I need to know. And oh my God, it was more than I could have ever expected. I really wasn't sure how I was going to feel about this one, but I loved it so much. I loved the growth between them. I loved seeing Eva. She's a single mother. Shane interacting with them. Shane's personal life and kind of what he was doing. I just thought it was so amazing. And like, you see them as teenagers and they're both definitely going through it. They're not involved with the best crowds, and just seeing the growth from them, I feel like this felt so real. I feel like a lot of the romances I read are a little cheesy or predictable, which is not a bad thing at all. Like, sometimes you just need those kinds of romances, but this felt like a real romance, and like this would actually happen between two people. And yeah, I really, really loved this book. Next up, number 11 is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. This is the first book in her new series, Rose Hill, and I really just enjoyed this book so much. I feel like there's no Elsie Silver book that I'm not going to enjoy. Like, her writing is just so fun. She writes banter so well. But this is about Rosie, and she goes back to her small hometown and she sees Ford, and he's now like a billionaire. He's opening this recording studio in Rose Hill, and she kind of just always has seen him as like, oh, that's my older brother's best friend. Then she comes back 10 years later and she's like, hold up, this man is hot now. And the two of them start working together. She starts helping him out as he's kind of building this recording studio, and the relationship between them is so funny but sweet. Like, there is just such good banter. I was genuinely laughing out loud at parts. He's also such a sweetheart and like just cares for her so much. There's this little thing that they do where they exchange emails back and forth, like when they're working, because they'll be like working in the same room and they'll be exchanging emails back and forth and then just like watch the other person read it. And I don't know why, that part was just so funny to me. Like, I genuinely just had such a good time reading this book. Book number 10 is The Alice Network by Kate Quinn. This one was also a 4.5 stars. I actually don't have this book right now because my mom borrowed it and then now my sister's borrowing it. But I thoroughly enjoyed this book so much. It made me want to read more historical fiction. But this is about Charlie, and she's an American girl, and she goes to Europe and she's trying to find this woman Eve because she thinks Eve knows something about her cousin who went missing during World War II. This is like a year or two after World War II ends. And then you also have Eve's story. She was a nurse in France during World War I. And so you have these two storylines, and then they kind of cross over and connect, and you start to put together these pieces and these details. And I just loved it so much because not only was it historical fiction, but like I said, there's also almost a little bit of like a mystery in there as well, of like trying to figure out what happened to this cousin and like how these stories intertwine. Then you also have a little bit of a romance in there. Like, I feel like it was truly just like the perfect book. It was kind of all the things that I love in a book all combined into one. I found it so fascinating. As soon as I was done, I was like, I need to find more books like this. I just like really thoroughly enjoyed this book. And you know that if I recommend it to people in my personal life, then that definitely means it was good. I told my mom and my sister, I was like, you guys need to read this. And my mom loved it, and my sister hasn't read it yet, so I don't know what her thoughts are yet, but I feel like she'll really enjoy it as well. Book number 9 is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. If you have watched any videos on my channel, I feel like I've mentioned this book so much, but I truly fell in love with this book when I read it earlier this year, and I honestly have not stopped thinking about it. This is about Linus, and he works for the department in charge of magical youth, and he is assigned to go to this orphanage where basically all of these magical children that they have deemed as bad have gone. So he goes there to kind of make sure everything's going okay at this orphanage, and the department in charge of magical youth kind of wants to shut it down. And he gets there and he meets the master of the orphanage, Arthur, and then he meets all the children, and it's so sweet because they're all magical creatures. So you have a gnome, you have a wyvern, you have like a green blob guy. They always joke they don't even know what he is, and it is just so sweet and heartwarming. It is a fantasy, but it's very much a cozy fantasy. Like, it's not very high stakes. It's not like the normal fantasy you're used to where there's like fighting and wars and stuff. It's very just like cozy, fun, but it's such a sweet story. I was like tearing up at the end, and I then read the second book this year as well. really enjoyed that too. Like I said, I've honestly not shut up about this book since I read it earlier this year, and I feel like that is a sign that I love a book, but I will not stop talking about it. So definitely recommend reading this one. Book number 8 is Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. So this is the second book in the Rose Hill series. So this is about Weston, who is Rose from the first book's brother, and he's driving around one day. Skylar shows up. She's actually coming to record at Rose Hill Records, recording studio that Ford owns, and the two of them kind of run into each other, have this sort of funny meet cute, I guess. And then she ends up staying with him because the houses for the recording studio aren't ready yet, and she is really going through a lot. Like, her parents were not the best, and this is her first time really leaving LA. She's just really struggling, and I feel like West was so good at just understanding her. He never like pushed her, even though he had these sort of feelings for her from the start. He never pushed her and kind of let her develop things on her own time and really work through her issues. He's also a single father, and his kids in this story were so cute. His son is like very shy and hardly talks to anyone, and Skylar helps him come out of his shell, and it is just so cute. I genuinely love this book so much. I gave this one 4.75 stars. I remember reading it and I was like, should I give it 5 stars? And even still now, I'm like, should I give it 5 stars? So I feel like it's bordering on there, but I really just, I loved this book so much. I love this series. I cannot wait for the next one. Book number 7 is Magnolia Park's Into the Dark. I always get them confused. Into the Dark. This is the last book in the Magnolia Parks part of the series. There's still going to be more Daisy Hates books, but this book was so good. I gave it 4.5 stars. This was really just a book about healing. If you read the series, you know that like Magnolia and BJ have gone through so much, both within their relationship, but then also in their personal lives with like friends and family and just so much going on. And I feel like this book, especially for Magnolia, was needed for her to just heal. Like, she had a lot of personal growth that needed to happen in order for her and BJ to succeed as a couple. And I feel like this book was just perfect for her to do all of that healing and growth that she needed to do. And yeah, I really enjoyed this book. Next up is number 6, and that is going to be Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I gave this one 5 stars. Now, I know there was a lot of controversy with this book. Everyone loved the first book, loved Powerless, and then they got to Reckless and they were kind of, I guess, disappointed maybe, or hoping for more. And I feel like had I read people's opinions before reading this book, I might have felt that way. But I think because I went into this not seeing anybody else's opinion, and I did that on purpose, I was like, I just want to read this for myself and see how I feel. And I really enjoyed it. Now, looking back, was there a lot of repetitiveness? Was the kind of cat and mouse thing basically the whole book, and you're like, okay, can we get to something else? Yes. But I enjoyed it so much because I just love Kai and Peyton interacting and being around each other, and that's what this book was them just interacting. And yeah, there were a lot of like knife to the throat scenes and a lot of really intense scenes, but you know what? I ate it up. I ate it up. I was so entertained, and now I feel like this was like a good in-between book, and now I'm ready for the action-packed finale to this trilogy to see what happens. So yeah, I loved this book. I ate it up. I think I read it in literally like a day and a half. Okay, so I'm gonna introduce 5, 4, and 3 and then kind of talk about them together because they're all a part of a series. So number 5 is A Court of Silver Flames by Miss Sarah J. Maas. Number 4 is A Court of Wings and Ruin. And number 3 is A Court of Mist and Fury. These books made me fall in love with fantasy early this year. Powerless, I think, was actually the very first fantasy book that I read. I read it at the end of 2023, and I was definitely hooked. But then I read ACOTAR, and I was like, yeah, no, I need more of this in my life. Like, I was like, I need more fantasy. I need more books like this. These truly, like, changed my life, changed me as a reader. I fell in love with romantasy, like I said, and yeah, I cannot get over these books. Obviously, I don't want to talk too much about them because if you have not read the series, which at this point, how have you not read the series? I thought I was late to the game. So if you've not read the series, you need to get on it. There is just so much jam-packed in these books. I mean, obviously, these are some big books, but there is so much that goes on in here. And like the last 100 pages of each book, I mean, Sarah J. Maas is always going to take you on a whirlwind, but especially the last like 100 pages of that book, you are just like flipping the pages so fast because you're like, I need to know what happens. yeah, wow. I loved these 3 books. They're so good. Asimov is definitely my favorite. Like, if you've read it, you know. But then I also loved like A Court of Silver Flames for Cassian and Nesta's story, especially seeing Nesta's growth because we needed Nesta's growth. But yeah, I'm so excited for what more is to come with this series. I hope she's writing more. I feel like no one has talked about it in so long. And I'm like, guys, are we gonna get more? Like, we need an Asriel book. We need so much more. So yeah, but I love these series. Truly, just like they are ingrained in my brain. And at some point I will do a reread. Okay, we are down to our last 2 books. And I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of hard to decide which one to put first and which one to put second. So to kind of just lump them together. I feel like they are just kind of interchangeable, again, depending on the day, depending on my mood. But for the purpose of this video, for number 2, I put The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Easy, easy, easy 5-star. Wow. I loved this book so much. The storyline immediately is what drew me. So basically you have Addie and she makes a deal with the Night. And the deal is that she will live forever, but no one will ever remember her. So as soon as you turn your back or you leave the room, you will not remember her. And it is just following her life over 300 years of all the things she's experienced, all of the different lives that she has lived, the places she has lived, the wars she's experienced, the trying times in the world that she's experienced and gone through. And then you have her in 2014 when she's 300 years old. And then you have this little bit of a romance. So beautiful. The story is so incredible. It was like I knew what the ending was going to be. I kind of saw it coming, but I was like, no, like I can't, this can't happen. This can't be how it ends. It was so good. I just loved it so much. The quotes in here are incredible. There was so much that I annotated, and yeah, please read this book if you have not. I know it kind of seems intimidating, especially because a lot of people say this is like dark academia, but I feel like it's not too heavy and I feel like it's a very easy to understand story. So yeah, please read this if you have not. And then book number 1 is going to be Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. This book, I swear, changed my life. I read this right after I got back from a girls trip with my best friends from college. We all live kind of all over the world now, and so we don't get to see each other very often. And I knew this book had a heavy theme of friendship. So when I got back from that trip, I was like, let me read this book. And I don't know if that was the best or the worst decision I ever made because wow, this book hit so hard. I was crying by like page 30. Like, I just adore this book so much. Basically, you just follow Kate and Tuli and their friendship over 30 years and the things that they go through. And I think it is such an important read, especially as a woman. It highlights so much female friendships and how important they are in our lives. And yeah, I adored this book so much. I absolutely sobbed at the end. It is so good. Super easy 5-star. There was no doubt in my mind that it was going to be a 5-star, and it absolutely was. So that is all for my top 24 books of 2024. It's honestly crazy looking at all of these books and being like, I can't believe I read all of these this year. Like, sometimes it feels like I read them like 2 years ago, and I'm like, wow, this year has truly flown by, but it's also felt so long. I don't know, it's been a crazy year, but I definitely had an amazing reading year. There were so many more honorable mention books that didn't get mentioned that I still loved this year. I'm going to do a full review wrap up kind of every book that I read this year, so definitely look out for that. That'll be coming in early January. But this is my last video for the new year, so thank you guys so much for watching. I'm so excited for all of the videos that I have planned coming up in the new year. I've got lots of fun and exciting plans, so hope you guys stick around. If you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!